Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti al seminario su Efficient Resource Management che si svolge nell'ambito delle attività della Cattedra Jean Monnet International Business for European Union, finanziata dalla Commissione Europea nell'ambito del programma Erasmus+. Oggi abbiamo come relatrice la dottoressa Maria Passalacqua, che è il direttore del club EMAS, the Euro Management Audit System catalano. Appunto parleremo di Efficient Resource Management, toccheremo una serie di argomenti collegati non solo all'EMAS ma anche all'eco-label e alla gestione sostenibile di impresa. Passo subito la parola alla nostra relatrice, che colgo l'occasione per ringraziare per aver accettato il nostro invito.
Grazie a voi per l'invito. Io sono italiana ma faremo la lezione in inglese se non avete nessun problema. Ho preparato le slide in inglese, quindi poi potete intervenire nella lingua che volete, sempre che io la capisca. Okay, so you're within a training program related to international business. Why are we talking about efficient resource management and international business? Question? Why? Why it is important to take into account the efficient resource the efficient management of resources when we talk about international businesses?
Resources, as you know, is limited. So in order to achieve our objective as a firm or as an individual, we need to make sure that these resources are well put into use, because the resources will not be there for us over and over or forever and ever.
Okay. So they're limited and we have to be sure that we manage them correctly. Then, what else? As entrepreneurs, are we facing any challenge? Come on, we are going to spend about 8 hours together, and it will be very boring if I'm always talking. So, have you heard about social responsibility, corporate social responsibility? Yeah? What is it about?
A good management of a firm to have a good impact on the environment, on all the stakeholders, not only internal but also external.
Okay. So this means that in a way we have to recognize that there's a strong interaction between our activities and the stakeholders, internal, external stakeholders, and that as a company or any kind of organization, we have to be able to provide not only an economic result, but also we have to contribute or to provide a shared value, environmental or social value, right? Okay, so I will add shared value. Something else? What about legal requirements? Is there any relationship between legal requirements and the management of natural resources?
Yes. There is a limit about the use of natural resources or the exploitation of natural resources.
Okay, so as entrepreneurs or as organizations, we have to face the fact that we have like a framework, a legal framework, and usually this legal framework defines or establishes limits, and it also establishes requirements in how we can use or manage a resource, right? So legal requirements are another challenge. Is there also any relationship between the economic aspects and the environmental aspects of an activity? can be a good environmental management, an element or aspect for a better competitiveness? What about, for example, energy costs? Is there any relationship between this and an activity? If we are able to reduce?
Yes, because it reduces the price of energy. We could reduce the price of our output, so or earns higher margin in our output, or sell the product at a lower price. So a lower price of energy is good for a firm.
Yes, I'm not sure if we are able to reduce the price of energy, but there's something that for sure we can do, is that we can reduce our energy consumption.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's more, I think you were going to this, okay, in this direction. So if we are able to reduce our energy consumption, then we will have less costs, and of course this could be reinvested in our product or our services, and then we can charge less for our products or services to the final customer, right? So okay. What else?
A better reputation for of the firm and with the consumer.
Yes. So if we are able to have or provide a better image or reputation of our company, then we will have like a better position in the market, or we can cover certain niche market niches, and we can also advertise our products or our services or our activities in a certain way. Right? So it's also very important when we talk about environmental management, also to have a good environmental communication. Okay? Something else? What about risks, insurances, and things like that? This is something any company has to have. Any company has an insurance, right? Because any activity has to face certain risks in their activity, whether there are economic risks, environmental risks, health and safety risks. So if we are able to have also a good environmental management, this means also that we will have a reduced risk. So this could also benefit us in terms of our insurances and also in terms of the financial agreements that we have with banks, for example. Okay, so reduce risks. Okay, we will start working with this and we will see if something else comes. So the organizations, whether they are big companies or small and medium companies, we know that they have to face different challenges, taking into account their economic and social environment. So what can they do? Let's have a look to these pictures. What do these pictures have in common? Any idea? Euros, a resort, a chocolatier, car factories, manufacturing site, printing site. What do they have in common? What they have is that they all are registered in EMAS, the Environmental Eco-Management and Audit Scheme, the European Eco-Management and Audit Scheme. Okay? So these all companies are registered under EMAS. And what does this mean? This means that in a certain way they have been certified by someone to be green. Okay? So when we see that a company holds this EMAS logo, it says EMAS Environmental Management and Audit Scheme Verified Environmental Management. So this means that someone has said, yes, this company has taken into account its environmental aspects and impacts, and they try to manage them in order to reduce their impact. Okay? So what is EMAS? EMAS, first of all, is not a compulsory regulation. I mean, the EMAS has been issued by the European Parliament within a regulation. So this is the EMAS regulation. It looks boring, like any other European regulation. But if you understand the philosophy, then you have a read to this, and it's another thing. Okay? And we are going to understand before which is the philosophy and the spirit of EMAS. And then when you will read the regulation, you will understand why it says what it says. So it's not compulsory, it's a regulation. It is compulsory for the member states to implement EMAS, so to create the competent bodies and to promote EMAS within their states, and to provide support to the companies that want to register under EMAS. But the organizations, whether they're companies, private companies, public organizations, or any other kind of organization, they are not, it is not mandatory for them to register under EMAS, so it's voluntary. Which are the pillars of EMAS? Performance, transparency, and credibility. So the aim of EMAS is to achieve the continuous improvement of the environmental performance of the company. So when we implement EMAS, this is because we want to improve, we want to be more efficient when we manage our resources, we want to reduce our energy consumption, our water consumption, we want to reduce our waste generation. And then how are we going to achieve this performance? We have to measure, okay? We cannot improve what we don't measure. So we have to measure, we have to evaluate, we have to report and to improve environmental issues. And this is going to be done through an environmental management system. And we are going to talk about the environmental management system, the whole elements of the environmental system, and the interaction of these elements. And then credibility. We have to provide outcomes. What kind of outputs? Performance and efficiency improvements, and credible, externally verified environmental information. So one of the added values that EMAS offers to a company is that the company has to provide an environmental statement. So this is an environmental report that is publicly available for free to anyone. This means your neighbors, your employees, the public administration, environmental NGOs, whoever is interested in our environmental performance. Okay? So performance, transparency, and credibility. EMAS suites for everybody. This means that any kind of organization, private or public organization, small, micro, or big company, an NGO, a school, a university, a trade union, they can all implement EMAS. Okay? And they will follow the same regulation and the same requirements, but they will adapt it to their own situation, their own conditions, their own activities, products, and services. Okay? So, how can we live or understand how EMAS can influence our day-by-day activity? We will see it taking into account examples, and we will imagine Mr. EMAS, who a day in Mr. EMAS' life. So, morning breakfast. Drinking EMAS. Illy Cafe is an EMAS registered organization. You all know Illy Cafe is a really well-known company in Italy for its quality, and I mean, it's, I think, #1 in its own sector. And in their case, besides the products and services and the reputation that you already know from the company, they have also implemented the state-of-the-art roasting installations with extremely low smoke emissions that provide less than 95% of under the levels permitted by the regulations. So it's a front runner, okay? Not only in its sector, as a coffee maker, but also as in the environmental sector. Vode, Walking EMAS. So this is another company. They manufacture jackets and any other kind of outdoor clothes. In their case, they have reduced by 20% in 5 years the CO2 emissions. They have 39% more workers in 5 years, but also 14% less energy consumption. So they are increasing their staff, but they're also reducing energy consumption. So it means efficiency, more with less. Driving EMAS. So here we can see different car manufacturer companies. In this sector, in the transportation sector, we can see like examples like Bombardier that has reduced 90% of the transport waste in 2013, and Lamborghini that has reduced 50% packaging waste and 30% of the total waste in 2012. Okay. This means also money, because generating, as the same example that we made with the energy consumption, applies to waste, because we have to pay to manage this waste. So the less waste we produce, the less expense that we will have at the end of the year. Then, printing EMAS, Schmidt's Digital Printing. This company has reduced 30% its energy consumption, and also 50% the consumption of solvent. Solvent is one of the products that it causes the VOC emissions, and the printing sector is going into digital and reducing the emission of solvents, or the use of solvents in their products. Volume EMAS, because European Central Bank has an EMAS registration, and also other EC institutions. So there are other buildings of the European Commission that are EMAS registered, and also the European Parliament. And enjoying EMAS, this was the first picture, the Chocolatier Belvas. They have site visit to showcase ecological factory. So this is important because it's related to the external communication. It's a way to involve your customer. You are showing how they do the things, the product, the service, but also how they reduce energy consumption and so on. So it's a good initiative, because you are providing more information about your products and your processes, but you also involving the customer and letting him or she understand how do you work. Okay. So they have a heat recovery system used to melt chocolate, so they are not wasting energy. Organic waste used in a biogas installation, and moreover they have 50% energy autonomy via solar panels in their manufacturing site. So of course they are reducing the expenditure on energy in their own factory. Another one, building on EMAS. This is Lafargue Cement. This company has different sites around Europe. In one of their sites, they have reduced 88% of the water consumption per ton, and Also the reduction of particulates, more than 70%, more than 60% reduction of oxide of nitrogen and sulfur dioxide, so reducing air emissions, 15% reduction of CO2 emissions, and 86% reduction of waste. So all of these are related also to their economic final results at the end of the year. Okay? Do you know something about CO2 emissions regulation, the CO2 emissions market, and so on? Are you aware that there are certain companies that already have to, they have a limit in terms of CO2 emissions? So if they're not able to maintain their emissions under these limits, and they have to, and they have a higher emission, they will have to pay buying from another company who has the possibility to sell them this this amount of emissions that they can do. Because the other ones have saved. So we have a limit totally. And if I'm a company that I'm very efficient and I'm able to reduce my CO2 emissions, I can sell the part of my share market to another one. Okay? But if I'm not efficient and I get my limit, whether I stop producing or I have to find how to buy the possibility to put into the system more emissions than the one that are forecasted for me. Okay, so and this means paying. Okay, going to the opera with EMAS. This is the Liceo Opera House in Barcelona. Have you ever been in Barcelona? No? Yeah. Okay. So if you have the opportunity to go to Barcelona, or you come back again to the city, have the opportunity to visit the Liceo. It's a nice opera house. The opera house has had a fire years ago, the same year of the Venice La Fenice. So when they have rebuilt the building, they have taken into account different things. And one of the things was how to improve the environmental management of the theater, how to build it better, how to generate less noise and problems to the neighbors. And the other thing is that they have implemented recently, well, I think it was like 3 years ago or so, a new air conditioning and heating system. For instance, the provider is an Italian company. And it was one of the first equipments that have been installed, at least in Catalonia. I don't know if it also in Spain. And they were receiving a lot of visitors from other companies that wanted to implement the same heating and air conditioning system. So this means for them 26% energy saving in 2011 and about 190,000 euros per year. So it's not peanuts. Okay, so all of this can be done following a plan, do, check, act methodology. Okay, have you ever heard about this PDCA, the Deming cycle? No? Okay, so this means that we have to first define what we want to do, where do we want to go, then we have to carry out our activities. We have to check if we are carrying out the activities as we planned to do it and if it is working or not. And then act means learning the lesson, learning about the whole cycle. Okay? We will have this on the slides. And I will explain you which are each of the elements of the environmental management system. Okay, we will do it shortly. So EMAS is good for the environment because organizations are able to reduce their water consumption, their energy consumption, and any other kind of energy or of resource that they manage. It helps to recycle and reduce waste production and also to prevent waste production. It helps to reduce air and water pollution, improves understanding of environmental risks and accidents. Okay, this is generally speaking which are the main benefits of implementing an environmental management system like EMAS. Oh, sorry, this is okay. So, have you heard about any other environmental management systems or labels? No? Have you heard about ISO 40001? No? ISO 9001, the quality system. Have you heard about this? No? Have you heard about the European Union Eco-Label? Or something? No? Okay. So, I'm going to show you these two pens, my pen and the one that's here. Can you tell me if one of these pens has something related to the environment? Is there any message of one in one of these products? Is there any interesting there?
The material 18 recycled the content.
Okay, it says that it is made by recyclable materials, right? And then something else?
This is a green label.
But maybe it's only the brand
Yeah.
that made this information and not the European certificate
Okay.
or something like this.
So as consumers, we can find different information in the market related to the products or services or also to the companies. But it doesn't mean that we, as consumers, we are really able to understand the information, right? So this one says that this pen has been manufactured with recycled material. So one thing is recyclable. That means this can be recycled if you do it correctly, if you manage to put it into the correct container, and then the waste container goes to the waste treatment plant and whatever, okay? And the other one is, it is recycled. So it has been produced using already a material that has been recycled, okay? And this is the case. This, for example, this pen, this has been made with the PET bottles, like this one, okay? And then you can also buy separately these per parts, okay? So the idea is that you don't throw away the pen and you reuse it, okay? But as a consumer, you see it, and if you really don't understand the value of the pen, I mean, okay, it's fine, but we don't know, we don't understand if we are not an expert, if this is from recyclable material, if it's recycled, or whatever, okay? And on the other hand, we have this other pen, and it says green label. Oh, great. Because now, when we say green something, it's like cool, okay? So, green, that's green. Well, it's not always that green, okay? So that's why there are eco-labels, and they are labels, officially generated labels, that establish criteria for certain products and services. We will talk about this at the end tomorrow, okay? And someone has defined the criteria in order to say, okay, yes, this pen is a green pen, so we can label it as it, and this is the logo, and if you want to keep it, you have to be sure that you accomplish all these requirements. You fulfill all these requirements, okay? That's in the case of a product or a service. So, if we're talking about an organization, and this organization manufactures products, we, as owners of this company, we can decide, okay, I want to have my product labeled or eco-labeled, okay? So we have to find out if there's an official eco-label for that product, because there are not eco-labels for all the products. And if they are, we have to be sure that our products fulfill the requirements in order to have the label, okay? And then there's another thing. Then we have all the processes, activities, and things that happen in here, okay? And when we talk about environmental management systems, we are talking about this. We're talking about managing correctly all our activities, operations, and processes, okay? So this is environmental management system, and this is mainly eco-label, okay? But of course, they are related, because if I'm able to manage correctly my processes, this means also that I can have the opportunity to design and manufacture better products and services, okay? In fact, when we talk about environmental management system, this is a big umbrella that allows us to manage our environmental aspects, or I mean the environmental aspects related to our processes, products, and services, okay? So, besides EMAS, we have also another international standard, which is the ISO 40001. This is a more common standard because ISO is International Standardization Organization. They have been in the industry for many years. They have created the first standards in the industry sector. And before the environmental management system ISO 40001, they have also issued other standards related to quality, to safety in products, and so on. Okay, so if you go into the market, you will see that there are many ISO 40001 certificate organizations. Okay, then we have the labels, those related to the product. They're a good tool, but they're limited to the product or service, and they just talk about specific aspects related to the manufacturing process. Okay, and then we have EMAS, which is the Eco-Management and Audit Scheme, and it's not only the environmental management system. It includes ISO 40001 as environmental management system, but it also talks about other elements that are key aspects for EMAS, and we will learn about them. So, in terms of relationship between ISO 40001 and EMAS, if this is ISO 40001, EMAS is ISO 40001 plus employee involvement. Okay, so for EMAS, the first EMAS has been issued in 1993. Okay, before the first edition of the ISO 40001. Okay, and since the beginning, the EMAS regulation has said it is really important to have the involvement of the employees, of the staff. Okay, we cannot have good results, we cannot really implement an environmental management system if we do not involve our staff. Okay, so EMAS is related also to participation. Okay, if we involve people, we can do this effort and have this result. If we do not involve people, then we will have this effort and just this result. Okay. Another thing is legal compliance, and this is very important. If a company is not able to demonstrate that it complies with all the legal requirements related to environmental legislation, then this company cannot have the EMAS registration. Okay? So if there's no legal compliance, there's no EMAS. So EMAS is also a guarantee of good environmental management in terms of legal conformity. Okay, So if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to implement an environmental management system, this system has to allow me to relax in terms, when I finish the whole day and I go back home, I say, okay, take it easy. Everything is under control. I know that I do not have any big problems at the company, okay? Because I know that everything is well managed. I know that someone is taking care of about the legal requirements, identifying these requirements, managing, and be sure that we permanently comply with the legal requirements. Then we have to improve our performance. So why do I expend money? Why do I spend resources, time to implement an environmental management system if the system doesn't allow me to have an efficient resource management, to reduce energy consumption, water consumption, waste, and whatever. Okay, so we have to be sure that the system allowed us to have a better performance, better results. And this performance is checked by environmental verifiers. We will see later how we get EMAS. Then public reporting through EMAS environmental statement. ISO 40001 does not require the companies to provide any environmental report. Okay? But this is compulsory for EMAS since the beginning. Since the very first day, the EMAS regulations has asked the companies to provide an environmental statement. And there's an annex of the EMAS regulation that explains the company which are the minimum contents of the environmental statement. And this document is publicly available for free for anyone who is interested in our company and its environmental management system. Okay? And another thing is that the EMAS is a registration carried out by a public authority. Okay? So even if the environmental verifiers are private companies or individuals that carry out the audit for the company, then the certificate and the registration is carried out by a public authority. And we will see how does it work in terms of scheme within a member state. Okay? So, how to implement EMAS? Does anybody here sail? No? No sailors here? Oh, you live in an island. I thought, yeah, okay, ogni tanto, bene. Okay, because my example is basically based on a ship, a vessel, okay? So, if we are a sailor, being a sailor is like being an entrepreneur, okay? So, the first thing is that we have to understand where we are and where do we want to go, as always in the life, okay? So, to do this, we have to understand that we will need to have the availability of certain resources and certain tools in order to accomplish our journey. Okay? So if we are a sailor, we have to place ourselves in our nautical charts to understand, okay, we are here and we have to get there. Okay? To do this, a sailor will need a crew, water, okay, never go out without water, fuel, even if we have the sails, okay, but fuel is always necessary, so be prepared. Navigation tools, safety equipment, maintenance, nautical charts, weather forecasts, good sailing practices, etc. Okay? So this means, as in a company, an organization, that we need certain elements, okay? And then we have to combine and work with these elements and be sure that if we have decided that we are there and we want to get here, we have to organize all of this in order to get to our final destination. Okay? So, for EMAS, what do we have to do? The first thing is that we have to carry out an environmental review. An environmental review is asking, okay, where are we now? Okay? So if we talk about a company and we would like to know where are we now, which will be the questions that we have to ask from the environmental point of view? Which are the elements that will help us to locate us in the chart and to say, yes, we are here? What do we have to ask? What do we have to look for? Any ideas? No? I will help you a bit. For example, we will have to understand which are our current consumptions in terms of energy, water, other resources. Okay? So this means doing what, for example? How can we obtain this information? What do you think that we should do? Like, for example, asking the invoices of the last year and see, okay, so let's try to understand what has been our energy, water, and whatever consumption, and try to figure out if we are like, okay, wow, this is, I don't know, this is the trend, or this is the trend, or this is the trend. Okay? So the first thing is, okay, let's talk about consumptions and see which are the consumptions and the trend in the last years. Okay? And this will say, okay, you're not so bad. I mean, you're doing quite well, or wow, this is terrible. Okay? What else?
The emissions of CO2.
Emissions. Okay. This could be emissions in terms of CO2 or anything. We can have VOCs or any kind of emissions that are related to our processes. Okay. And if we talk about emissions, we will just see the figures, or is there anything interesting to do? Is there any comparison that could be interesting to do? For example, are we complying with the legal limits or not? Yeah, that would be an interesting question. So these are our emissions, and are we under the limit or over it? Because if we are under the limit, okay. If we are over the limit, it's like wah, 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 attention. No, because we are having a problem. Okay, what else? Like, for example, did we have any environmental problem in the past? That could be another question. Like, yes, we did. We had a fire, or we had a soil contamination, or yes, we lost a big container of waste, or something. Something happened, or no, we didn't have anything. So, okay, so past past situations in terms of emergencies or any other situation. What else?
Maybe the cost linked with
Yes.
this subject.
The cost related to the environmental management or mismanagement, okay? Because of course this means money, this means money, this means money, waste means money, everything. So for sure this is interesting. And also if I have to get a special permit, this means money, taxes, and so on, okay? What else?
Identify the potential risk of this.
Okay, potential risks. We have to identify the risks that we could face, and we have to identify also the environmental aspects and impacts related to our activities. Okay, so the aspects are like, yes, we have air emissions, and we have wastewater, and we generate waste, and of course we consume energy, and then the impacts, so which are the consequences of each of these aspects. So this will help us to place our organization in our nautical chart. It's like having a document saying, okay, this is fine, this is not so fine, this has to be improved. Yes, you have certain good environmental practices, and well, you have terribly managed this, you have to improve that, you have to train people, okay? So the environmental review is an initial picture of our situation, our company, with all its environmental aspects and impacts, the impact in terms of economical results, the trends related to our current performance, and then we will say, okay, this is the current situation, now we can decide where do we have to go, okay, or where we want to go. Okay? So the environmental review will help us to identify the environmental aspects and impacts, okay? And also legal and other requirements, okay? This will be like two important pillars in order to understand where are we, which is our current environmental management situation, and what we can do in order to improve it, okay? When we talk about legal requirements, we talk also about other requirements, which maybe are not compulsory. They could be voluntary agreements, but they are important because if, as a company, we decide to subscribe an agreement, for example, with a public administration or an environmental NGO, or like one of these environmental charts for something, even if they are voluntary, once we undersign them, then they are mandatory for us because it's a commitment. So once we accept that, then it's something that we have to manage within our company, and we have to be sure to accomplish it, okay? So that's why we talk about legal and other requirements. So now we understand where is our boat located. And then we decide, okay, we want to get there, okay? And getting there is the environmental policy. So the environmental policy, it's a page, okay, where the company defines its main environmental directions, its wishes, it formalizes its commitment, and in one page the company has to be able to explain where are we sailing to, okay? So the policy, the environmental policy, will be as the compass to the sailor, okay? This will say, okay, this is our direction. We are sailing toward that concrete place, okay? So tomorrow, during the the hands-on session, we will work on an environmental policy. And it's something interesting to understand because companies sometimes they prepare this policy. Sometimes they use very complicated language and terms. And finally, when they're happy with the policy, they sign it. The top management signs the environmental policy. And then it's something that we see placed in the entrance of the company or in the meeting room or something there. And I always say, okay, it's fine. I mean, I understand that you want to show your policy. It has to be publicly available. It's your commitment. So it's nice to have it here. But have it also here on your table, in a place where every day you will see it and every day you will remember what you have signed. Okay? Because once that time you have signed that, you have decided, yes, I'm going to sail with the boat in that direction. I want to get there. And then life makes, I mean, we have waves, okay? But we always have to remember, okay, but we have a commitment. We have an environmental commitment, so we have to be able to manage it, and then it's not something that we can forget. It's not just there at the end, just in the meeting room for the people. It's for us, as managers first, and entrepreneurs, and then for everybody, okay? So, our compass. So, usually the environmental policy is this nice page with nice wishes, and is a policy. So, if we want to get this policy into reality, we have to do a step further. And this means that we have to define objectives and programs. Okay? So it is nice to declare in our policy that we will contribute to the protection of the environment, and that we will reduce our impact in terms of global warming. Okay? But then, what are we going to do this? Okay? So the objectives allowed us to define concretely these elements that are contained in our policy. Okay? So imagine the objectives as the task carried out by the navigator in our boat. Okay? So if we have, this is our compass, and we say, okay, this is our policy, we're getting here. Then the objectives have, okay, to get here, first we have to get here, and there, and there. Okay? And we have to follow the steps and take care or check if we are able to do the whole thing, and if we are really following our route. Okay? And then the programs are the document where we define what kind of actions are we going to carry out to achieve our objectives, who is responsible for these activities or actions, what means or resources are we going to dedicate to these objectives, and how are we going to schedule these objectives and activities along the year or along the period that we have defined. Okay? So this means from general purposes, wishes, great ideas, to concrete objectives and actions. Okay? Then we have to organize our crew, because if we don't let the people know who is who within the environmental management system, then we could have chaos. Okay? So if we are in a boat and the captain says, okay, let's go starboard, and no one knows who has to do something, we're not going to do anything, okay? So the most important thing is to organize our crew, and this means define a structure and responsibilities. So any person in our crew, in our company, must know which are their tasks in terms of environmental management, their responsibilities, their authorities, who they want to report to, if there's any problem, who is the person to talk to, okay? So usually the companies, they have an environmental manager or an environmental responsible or an environmental coordinator, okay, who is the person that provides coordination among different units and activities. But it is really important to understand that the environmental management system does not belong to the environmental coordinator. So this means that anyone in the company is involved in the environmental management system, but of course there's one person or more than one who helps organizing the whole thing, okay? But anyone has to contribute to the environmental management of the company, okay? So we have to understand who's who in the environmental management system. And of course we have to train people, because otherwise we cannot ask people to do things if we do not help them to do so. So we have to provide them resources, and one of the resources is training, okay? Training, awareness, and competences, okay? So if our people is well trained, because we already gather people from other companies and they're trained as experts on environmental management, great. But if not, we have to train them, there's no problem, okay? So can you provide me an example of one of the competences that we could need, for example, well, if the university implements an environmental management system, is there any competence that teachers should have? Like, for example, here, do we have any environmental aspect or impact here, now, in this room, during the teaching activities? Hmm?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, for example?
Light.
You have the fire alarm.
Energy consumption, we're using energy for the light bulbs and the projector, the PC.
Yes. Even the paper, writing.
We are consuming paper. What else? Other consumables. What else?
The warming of the locals.
The warming of the locals? I mean, you mean the heating system and the air conditioning system? Yeah, so we are consuming energy again. What else? Waste? No, because at the end of the day, I will probably finish the water, and we will probably have to waste paper and so on. Okay? So we have certain environmental aspects. So if we want to manage these aspects, what you should do? Or do you have any idea on how to manage these aspects in this particular case, in this center?
Yes, by the use, for instance, of the solar panel to produce the energy, or prefer the slide or something like this to write and to transfer the knowledge and not paper and pen.
So certain things are related to like different technologies or tools, right? Like, okay, if we, instead of having to buy energy from the energy company, we could have solar panels and produce our own energy if it is possible, okay? And to change the paper board for any other, I don't know, technological and advanced system, it could be. Okay, but is there something related to our personal behavior that we could change? For example?
A teacher with a long experience.
What?
Other personal behaviors like not putting the light on whilst living, and also not using the right voltage for the internal lighting, and others.
Okay, there are things related to, for example, how do we use the energy when we're using the classroom? So, for example, it could be like an instruction to explain, do not turn on the light if we have enough natural light, for example. So if we don't need it, just save it. And if we need it, please remember to turn it off when you leave the room, for example. And these are related to the activity carried out by the teacher, for example. So the teacher could have the responsibility to turn on and turn off the lights, okay? And this doesn't cost anything. That's just doing click. This is just a good practice, okay? We don't have to invest anything to do this. It's just invest on training and say, hey, remember, we have an instruction, so please turn off the light, okay? And then we can have something related to the maintenance area, because, okay, when we buy the light bulbs, hey, remember that we have different light bulbs, and there are the ones that are more efficient, the A, and then we have other ones that are less efficient, so remember to buy the ones that are efficient, right? For example. So, in this case, there's another competence related to maintenance, knowing what kind of light bulbs we need to buy, okay, for example. And like, for example, setting temperatures, minimum and maximum temperatures on our rooms, okay? And usually, I'm away from Italy for many years, so I'm not sure what's happening now here, but at least in Spain there is a legal requirement, so we cannot have more than 21 degrees in winter in offices and working spaces, okay? And we cannot have less than 26 degrees on summer. So this means that, I mean, if I'm a person that needs a jacket because I feel like I'm always freezing, I know that the temperature is this, and just wear a jacket, wear a wool sweater or whatever. And if I'm a hot person, then adapt and go sleeveless if you need it. But the temperature is set on 21 and 26, and that's it. So this means, okay. What else? Waste. So here we have a waste container. Okay, here, small one, small things. Okay. So one of the good practices could be, for example, sorting waste, okay, which actually is compulsory, okay. But if we don't teach people and we say, okay, this color container is for this waste and that one is for the other one things, if we don't teach people, then we cannot expect to have a correct sorting of the waste, right? So this means that we have to provide competence to people, okay? If we define tasks and responsibilities, we also have to train them and allow them to do the task correctly, okay? So, awareness. Which is the difference between training and awareness? So one thing is like, I do something because they have taught me to do this, okay, and I know how to do it. And also I do it because I think that that's the correct thing to do, okay? So awareness is going further and is trying to change a behavior because we are able to convince people that this is the right thing to do. Okay? So training is something that we could do in a classroom or in a practical activity or wherever, and a warning is a day-by-day activity. Okay? It is easier to install a solar panel than change people's behaviors. Okay? It takes longer, it takes resources, and we have to deal with people. So this is very important because the environmental manager in a company, or the environmental responsible or coordinator, has to deal with people every day and has to ask for information and has to ask for people to do things. And so it's no easy, because you have to convince people and you have to let them know that you are not just the people that are always asking to do this and are checking the waste and say, oh my God, you have not sorted your waste. I have told you this 1,000 times. Okay? So we have also to be creative and to try to invent how we can convince people to do things. Okay? Then, internal and external communication. Very important. Okay? I always say that communication is like a lubricant oil in an engine. If we don't have communication, the engine will not work. That's a problem. Okay? So, in terms of internal communication, why do you think that it is essential in terms of environmental management? What kind of information do you think that it's important to provide to our staff? When we talk about communication, we're talking about cross communication, 2 directions. Okay? So, if you are the environmental manager, what do you think it's important in terms of communication in relation to the staff?
Transfer of knowledge.
Expert of knowledge, for example.
Culture of offrire.
Transfer or?
Culture of offrire.
Okay, culture. What else? If you are an employee of a company and this company has implemented an environmental management system, what would you like to know about the company?
The benefit for me from good behavior in terms of environment.
Okay, why doing this is better also for me, right? Okay, advantages, benefits, okay, interesting. What else? For example, you said benefits for me generated by a better environmental management. Do you think that there's a direct relationship between good environmental practices and better labor conditions? Is there something that I can feel as a staff that I can benefit from it? Like, for example, if we generate hazardous waste in a company, this could be like, for example, paper with solvent. Okay, this is normally classified as a hazardous waste. So if we have this, or a cloth with solvent, if we reduce the amount of this waste, or we change the solvent for other substances, is there any direct benefit for us as employees working there?
Yes.
Because you don't have to manage this kind of elements.
Okay. So also in terms of health and safety, we could benefit from this. Okay. So if it's good for the environment, it will be also good for me, right? Okay. For example, is there any other information that we would like to know as staff?
Maybe for the local people within in which the firm operates, in terms of emission of CO2 or something like this.
Okay, so our environmental performance in relation to our neighboring areas. Okay, so in this case, it's not internal communication, but it is external communication. So if I'm a neighbor and I live just across the street, of course, it will be interesting for me to know if you behave correctly and if you are under the legal limits for your emissions and whatever, for example. Okay, what else? If you want, we can consider widely the stakeholders. So besides the staff, neighbors, any other ideas?
Economic information, the reducing of the cost in a long-term point of view.
Okay, so like the investments carried out on environmental aspects, it would be environmental technologies, management, and so on. Okay. What else? What about, for example, if we are all involved in carrying out an activity because this is established in our environmental policy and we have defined also an objective? Of course, we will be interested to know if the effort that we have all carried out has provided the expected results, right? So have we been able to achieve this objective or not? Okay, and if not, why? Okay. Any other information that could be interesting to know? So I will ask you the other part of the question. As a company, is there something that I would like to know from the staff, from the neighbors, from others in terms of environmental management?
Yeah, in terms of environmental management, there are certain things you have to also know from we the staff, because knowledge is not in only one person's head. For example, we can, as a staff member of a company, we might need, for example, in an office, we might need a fire alarm system that will prompt us in case of any emergencies. We also want some exit system, how we exit when there is a need for us to exit in case of any fire. And so the information must flow from one another to the other.
Yeah, the information must flow from one to another one. And as a company, I'm interested to know how we can improve our processes, also our products or services. And one of the sources of information, probably the most important source of information, is our staff, because they know things. They know the processes, they carry out the operations, they are there all the days. They know the products, the services, they know where our weak aspects. Okay? So it's important also to ask people, okay? To have them participate, to involve them, and try to understand where we can improve things, or if they are concerned about a certain environmental aspect. Okay? I'm going to make you some examples. We could be like, for example, a metallurgical company. So we made metal parts, okay? And probably as an environmental aspect, we will have like energy consumption, chemical products. Of course, we will use different kind of for raw materials, and we generate waste, any kind of waste, mainly the one at the manufacturing side, okay? And usually we concentrate on these aspects, okay? But then we realize that people working in the office, they feel that they are excluded from the environmental management system, because everything important from the environmental point of view is caused by the production area, because of course it's dirty. I mean, we are at the offices, and then there's the site, right? So they may feel that they are not involved, or they're just not so interested because they have a small environmental impact. They just generate some paper from the offices, and of course they consume energy for the offices and the equipment, but that's it, okay? So even if we have stronger environmental impacts in the production area, it could be interesting, for example, to understand how we can involve them, and so understand if there's something in the offices that they think we're not managing correctly, okay? Because they maybe said, okay, yes, we're doing all this at the production site, but then here we spend money because we waste a lot of paper, and then everybody prints just one side of the paper in the daily activities, and then I always get there to the photocopies and I find a lot of photocopies that no one is recovering. So maybe if this message is telling us something is, okay, but also here in the office we are causing an impact, maybe it's small, but we're doing things and we're not doing correct things. So we can improve something, we can do something. And it's as easy as to implement good practices for printing materials and the same things that we were talking about the classroom, so switch off the lights when you leave the office and so on, okay? So communication is important also to detect if we can involve other people. It's not easy to change behavior in the people. When we have a company, we have different people with different training and education levels, with different attitudes, with different interests, personal interests, and they could be happy or unhappy for many things. So it's not easy to deal with people, and on the day by day we have to create, and we have to listen and be able to get the message and then provide an answer, okay? So it's really important to involve them, and as it is not easy to involve people, once we have one person that is interested, we have to take into account this person, okay? Because then we have one person that we know that will be like an antenna in its area, okay? So this person will have also the power to involve others in the same area, okay? So what would you do in order to get information from the staff? Information that you think that could be key information for improving our environmental management.
Periodical relationship.
The part?
Periodical with the staff.
Okay, so like meetings, periodical meetings with the staff, something else? Have you heard about like project teams or improvement teams? No, so we can also create teams in order to involve people and say, okay, we have an objective, we want to do this, let's create a team and then work on this, okay? What else? Do you usually fill in the questionnaire that you find at the hotels when you go there? Yeah, do you do it? Okay, so that's fine. For example, one thing could be, okay, we are going to have a mailbox in our company, so whoever wants to tell us something, they can leave the message there, for example, okay? This is something that it works in certain companies, and in certain it really doesn't work, nothing, zero, okay? So there's no a universal good recipe. We have to find a way to do it. So we have to understand the company, our environment, our people, the way we do things, and try to find out which is the best communication tool with our people, okay? So another thing, another idea to catch up with information from the staff or from any other stakeholder? No?
One basic thing, personal interaction. Personal interaction.
For example?
For example, instead of, some people feel very reluctant filling those forms. So meeting maybe a staff or meeting a customer and just having a chat with them, what are his observations, what does he think we can do to improve the services we provide, and personal interaction, just an informal or formal personal interaction with the stakeholders.
Okay. So I will tell you about one hotel director. It was interesting because he was always, let's say, like traveling along the hotel with the elevator. But as a customer, I mean, he didn't have any director card or anything. He just go up and down with the elevator few times a day just to hear what the customers and the people were saying. Because they say, oh, it's interesting, you know, that they comment things that they will never tell you, but they're talking about them and they say things. So, oh, this is something interesting. So we have to find out communication opportunities on our spaces in order to gather information and also to provide information. I will explain you one activity carried out by one of the Danone group companies. They have the manufacturing site near Barcelona, and they do cookies. Okay. So it's interesting. It's not an EMAS registered company, but they are very creative, and they carry out a very interesting initiative related to training. They were unsatisfied about the results of the training activities because they have been carrying out training activities for many years related to quality, food safety, health and safety, management and environmental management, but the results were not really good. The results were good because at the end the performance was not improving, and also because then when it was time to carry out the training activity, the people doesn't show up. I mean, they say, oh, training, blah, that's boring, no? So they just avoid going to the training activities. So, and that was a failure, okay? So 1 year, the quality and environmental director decided, okay, we are going to change the format of our training activities because this doesn't work. So he gathered his team and we say, we have to invent something, let's try to do whatever, but something different than the things that we have been carried out in the last years. So they decided to create like those TV shows that we have, that you have to guess something and you get a prize, and okay. So they decided to create these awards, and it was very, very, very an innovation for the company because they have never carried out something like this. So they decided, okay, let's talk to the other units and see if we can do something like this. So the answer was amazing, because everybody says, okay, we will create the questions. And the other one says, okay, maintenance said, okay, we are going to create the button and the lights and the music and the whole thing. And the IT sector decided, okay, we are going to create a program in the computer so that we can have a chrono. When you ask the question, then we have the time and we can check each of the tables and the teams and everything. So everybody wanted to contribute and to participate to this new idea. And they closed the whole factory 1 day a year. The whole factory stopped everything. And they put on scene this fantastic TV award. And they create teams. So the questions are related to quality, to environment, to health and safety, to food safety, and so on. But it's another way of learning. So when they carry out this activity, everybody goes to the training activity. So everybody that day goes to work, and everybody participates to the training activity, because for them it's like, wow, it's amazing one of these days. Okay, so and they really, it doesn't mean that this is something that we can reply replicating any other company, of course. But it's a good idea, I mean, and they didn't spend too much money to do it because they do it by themselves. So it was really, really nice. So the first year they carried out this, they had also the TV, the local TV that were there because it's like very original. So they were really happy because they were on TV. And so the managers at the European level said, wow, have you seen what they have done in Spain? This is a really good idea. So they asked the factory in Spain to prepare like a small manual on how to organize such an event. And the next year, all the managers from the other European sites went there to see the whole thing. So they were really, really proud of the activities they have carried out. So sometimes we just need like a pinch of creativity and we can get really, really nice results from doing this. Okay? And there are companies like that organize activities. For example, they go out one day into a national park with a staff and they do things, or they plant trees, or they take care of something. So you can find different activities and ideas in order to involve people. In terms of external communication, probably we have like a business management culture that does not allow us to explain what we do to other people, because like we are always probably we have constraints because we think, oh, we have all our knowledge and the know-how and the things we do. So maybe having visitors in the company is not something that we like too much. It depends, okay? But one of the things that we can do is like open house activities or open doors activities, because at the end, there's really nothing to be like that secret, okay? People knows how we manage the company, or at least they imagine. And it is better to let them know how we do it, because they can have a clearer, better idea, than if we just imagine them. Because when you imagine something, you always imagine the worst. So it's better to teach them how we do it. And also because we also think that public administration usually shouldn't know too much about us. But already the public administration has information and they know all about us. So, I mean, that's no secret anymore. Okay? So we can use also open door activities in order to involve people, our neighbors, the public administration, NGOs, but also the families of our staff. And for example, we have a company near Barcelona. Is a company from the chemical and logistics sector. For instance, is the company of our president as association. And I mean, managing a chemical company is not so easy. Okay, I mean, when we talk about chemical companies, everybody says, "Wow, it's like." And they have organized an open door activity for the families and neighbors, the families of their staff and the neighbors, and they have shown all the activities they carried out, how they have their internal procedures to control all the processes, how they manage risks, because they have risks, of course, but they are prepared to do this. So they were teaching also the kids how to wear the safety equipment and everything. And besides this, they organized like it was an electric vehicles show, and they were teaching people how to use the electric vehicles and motorcycles and whatever. No? So it was really nice, because then you have results in terms of different people. Your staff, because for your staff it's nice to bring your family there and show what kind of work you do and feel important because you're doing something really nice for the society and also for the environment. It was nice for the families of the staff because they had the opportunity to go there and see, oh, my father does this or the other. And for the neighbors, because they know that they live near or close to a chemical site, but they know that everything is under control, so they feel safe. And for the public administration, because they already have all the information about the company, but it's nice to go there and see that they have no problem to show you things, and that you can go around and see how they manage things, and how they are prepared to manage any kind of problem if it occurs. Okay, so it's very, very positive. So we can invent different kind of ways to carry out the communication. And this is very important, because if we don't carry out a good communication, then it will be very, very difficult to coordinate people and also to aware people. Okay? In terms of EMAS, from the external communication point of view, we will have also the environmental statement, and tomorrow I will show you examples of some environmental statements. Okay? So are these reports that we will publicly publicly available to anyone, and that provide a picture of our environmental management. Okay? So, documents. This is the boring part of the system, I have to tell you. So many companies complain because they said, oh, implementing an environmental management system. Many companies complain about the environmental management systems and also the quality systems, because they say, okay, then we have to generate a lot of documents and we have to deal with these documents. And it's like the environmental management system is like bureaucracy, okay? And this is a problem, because this means that we have not correctly implemented an environmental management system. So we have to imagine that the environmental management system is something that has to fit to our company, okay? So it's not us adapting to documents, but we have to adapt documents to the company, okay? So of course we need some documents, because we cannot have all the information here, okay? So we have to collect information, we have to elaborate data, we have to make decisions based on this data. So of course we have the need to have some documents. Of course we need the invoices in order to see which is our energy consumption. Of course we will have a spreadsheet with all the consumptions and interesting data. And of course, we may have an instruction on our classroom saying, please remember to switch off the light and sort the waste, and remember to close the door, and basic information. So of course we need instructions, procedures, and information for the people, but the most important thing is that we have to provide this information in a friendly way, okay? So if we have the option to explain the same information using less documents or a shorter and concise document, we have to do this, okay? Because anyone likes longer documents, okay? This is like, it's boring, okay? So, if you were a restaurant manager, for example, and you want to make a procedure or an structure on how to set up the table, how would you do this? Any idea?
First, you put it in writing, then you demonstrate.
Yeah, okay, put it in writing, but for example, I will put it in writing and say, okay, how to set the table. First put the tablecloth, then put the dishes, keeping a distance, an adequate distance from dish to dish, and then remember to put the napkin on the left side, and the fork will be on the bigger fork will be on the left side, but in the nearest position to the dish, and then the second fork, the smaller fork, will be on the left, close to the other one, and then you will put the knife on the right side of the dish, and then the spoon, and then the dessert spoon and fork will be on the upper part of the dish. So, I mean, of course you can write it, but it's confusing. I mean, Is there any other idea to explain how to do this?
By the image, by the picture.
Yeah, so set the table, take a picture and say how to set the picture, like this, okay? Easy, effective, shorter, and user-friendly, okay? So we also have to be smart in this, because I have seen procedures in companies and you say, oh my God, it's like, it's boring. Of course, if you ask people to do this, and if you ask people if they know the procedure, they will say no, of course, because they haven't read it once, okay? So we have to find ideas. We have to do it, we can do it by images, PowerPoint presentations, a video, or anything. I mean, today the technology allowed us to do very nice things with just few resources, and we can have really, really good results, okay? So, of course, we need some documents, and the environmental management system, as any other management system, asks us to define which are the main documents of our system, and also we have to define rules in order to manage correctly these documents. So we have to be sure that if we change a document, we modify the document, we are sure that we have changed the old one and we have provided people with a new version, that we are able to identify the documents and its versions, that the documents are located in the places where people can have access to these documents, okay, whether they are on paper or digital version, okay, because if we create a document, it's because there's a need, so someone needs us in order to work, okay. Then, operational controls. This is the true heart, the true engine of the system. Because when we talk about operational controls, we define which are the key activities and operations related to our environmental aspects and impacts. So imagine we have our company and we have different processes, okay, and activities. And we said, okay, taking into account the whole picture, which are the key operations, which are all the activities that if we don't carry it out them correctly, we will have a negative environmental impact, or we are risking to, for example, not fulfilling a legal requirement, or we could have a problem because we are not achieving an environmental objective, or so on. Okay? So we will identify them, and we will say, okay, for these activities, we need operational controls. That means that we have to explain people how to correctly carry out this activity, which is the operational criteria to carry out this task, and we have to set a way in order to control these activities. Okay? Do you have any working activity, recent working activity where you have involved and you have been provided with an instruction on how to do it? A formal instruction? No? Okay, let's imagine that the operational controls are like a recipe for a chef, okay? So we are explaining the ingredients and the procedure on how to do things. And if we don't do this, then at the end the result would be another one, not that one, okay? I know that there's people who cooks without recipes, okay? There's people that is able to do this, but usually for desserts, they say that if we don't follow a recipe, then the output is not satisfactory, okay? But, so take into account this. For example, if we have energy recovery plant from waste, so a waste incinerator, but we recover energy. Okay, usually waste incinerators. One of the main aspects from the environmental point of view is related to the air emissions. Okay, and as you never know what kind of waste you receive on your plant, it is very important to check the temperature at the end of the process, because otherwise you can have dioxin emissions on the air. Okay, so it's very important to control what is called the post-combustion phase. Okay, and in order to be sure that you don't emit any dioxin, this means that you have to keep a temperature which is at least 850 degrees. Okay, if you are not burning at that temperature, you cannot ensure that you are not emitting any dioxin. So this is a key aspect. Okay, so one of the informations that we have to include in that case in our procedures is that, of course, we have to check continuously the temperature of the post-combustion chamber, and that this temperature at the minimum has to be 850, and that if something happens and we don't reach this temperature, we have to do something. Okay? And then we have to explain what to do. We have to stop the process, or activate something to do something. Okay? So operational controls means how do we have to carry out activities. We have to provide the operational criteria and be sure that we are able to check it, and be sure that the activities are carried out as established. Okay? Of course, we can change procedures because we innovate technology, that things changes, okay? But we also have to have the recipe, okay? Take into account that we have to carry out this, okay? So that's why we said that it's like the heart of the engine of the environmental management system. Okay. Then, emergency situations, okay? The environmental management system asks us to identify our environmental aspects and impacts in normal, abnormal, and emergency situations, okay? Because the normal situations is, okay, normal, okay, we can foresee it, but okay, and then is there something abnormal that could happen, or could we have any emergency situation? If yes, we have to identify it to prevent it, of course, but also we have to take into account that there's no risk zero, so we have to be able to manage it, okay, and be prepared. So, what kind of emergencies could we have here?
The air conditioning system broke, and the temperature go.
Yeah.
Degrees and degrees.
Okay.
So the consumption of the energy is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, it could be, I think in that case probably it would be a problem for us because we will feel uncomfortable, okay? But the main aspect is that maybe if the air conditioning broke is because it had a leakage of refrigerant gas, okay? And this refrigerant gas, if they go to the environment, they could have a problem. The oldest gases, the old gases, they are they deplete the ozone layer, and the ones that are called new generation gases, they are not harmful for the ozone layer, but they are greenhouse gas. So anyway, if we have a problem like this, we are causing an environmental impact. And in this case, we have to call the maintenance area and do things and whatever, okay? What else?
You can have power cuts, light out. You can have fire outbreak. You can have
okay, so fire, right? So you have a fire, we're burning things. So we have unusual air emissions, and which are harmful emissions. What else do we have? in case of a fire. Other things that are burned, so waste, and it's waste that usually we don't have, okay, because we have table and the furniture and things, but if all these get burned, so we will have a lot of waste. What else? We will probably spend some water to extinguish the fire, so we're consuming water. And besides this water is polluted with all the waste and the materials that we are burning, okay? So of course we have consequences on the environment, okay? So fire is an environmental emergency. And of course we cannot guarantee that we will never have a fire. We try to not have any fire, and we can prevent this. But of course we have to be prepared, okay? So that's why we have instructions, okay? And that's why people is trained to face these situations, okay? So, in relation to the emergency situations, there's another thing that is very important to consider, and is related also to the training and the communication. Because when was the last time you get an airplane? You got an airplane? Recently or no? So do you remember what were the passengers doing while the stewardess was explaining the emergency situations and the whole thing? Do you remember? Maybe you were reading the newspaper or having a look to the tablet or whatever, instead paying attention, right? This is common. I mean, this happens because we said, oh, okay, this is like the 103,000 times that I have heard about this, and we know all the planes, we know where all the emergency exits are. So, I mean, we already know the whole thing, so we do not pay attention. And the problem is that we have to invent something to catch the attention of the people, because it's really, really important. I'm not sure, I mean, I travel, and I'm not sure if in an emergency situation I will be really sure on how to open the door, how to get the emergency exit, and so on. I mean, of course, I know the theory, but then when you have to face reality, that's another thing, okay? So, how can we do in order to catch the attention of people?
Improve the awareness of the people.
Yeah, but how? So, if you...
Simulations.
Simulations, yes. Even in an airplane, this is not easy to do, but of course, in a site, you can do it in the company. And this is something that usually it's a legal requirement. So the health and safety legislation asks you to carry out simulations, because one thing is the theory, and then do it. Do it in real conditions or simulated conditions. So simulations are a good tool. What else?
Show a potential situation after the emergency.
Yeah. So, like having a briefing after the emergency, and try to see if we were all prepared, if we did the correct things, if not, where were the mistakes, and how we can improve this. Okay. So this is something that we have to work in relation also to the communication. And I will recommend you, if you ever travel to Portugal and you choose the Portuguese airline, the TAP, they have a really, really nice video on the emergency situations, but really, really nice. So even if you have a good book and so on, and you are really interested in your newspaper, you will have a look to the video. They really had a nice video. And there's another thing that years ago started to do the Asian companies. I don't know, but I think the first one was Singapore Airlines, and now it's something that other companies commonly do, but is they have addressed specific communication to the passengers that are seated in the emergency exits, because they have a responsibility. I mean, if there's someone that has to open the door, it's the people that are sitting right there, okay? So they go there, the steward goes there, they ask you if you speak English or not. If you have any problem to be seated there, they explain you face to face the instructions, so you cannot read your newspaper because you have the person there, so you have to pay attention, of course. And then they ask, have you really understand what does it mean to be seated here? And do you really want to keep this place? So they are pointing at you. They're saying, hey, you will be responsible, okay? So are you in condition to take care of this responsibility or not? Because I can change your place if you don't want to stay here. But if you are staying here, watch out, okay? So this is saying, okay, you have this responsibility. Be sure that you will do it correctly, okay? So risk zero does not exist. We can prevent, of course, emergency situations, but we have to be prepared to do this, okay? To deal with them. Then, remember the plan, do, check, act cycle, right? So the first was plan, then we have travel through the do, and now we are check and act, okay? So we are here. One of the elements of the environmental management system is measure and monitoring. We said at the beginning when we carried out our environmental review that we have to understand where are we. So that's why we're checking information, collecting data and everything in order to see, yes, okay, we're carrying out a good practices or not, and where we have to improve. And we said that we cannot improve if we don't measure the characteristics and the information, the key aspects of our process and activities. So we have to measure and monitor all our environmental aspects and impacts. Okay. So give me ideas on what to measure and how to do it. For example, one of the things, let's say we are a hotel, okay? Which are the main environmental elements or aspects that you think we have to measure?
Use
Energy, okay. How we will measure this? How?
with the solar panel.
No, but how to measure the energy consumption?
Through data, bolle.
Through data, okay, the invoice, okay. So we have our invoice, okay, so we collect them. And what kind of information, do you think this is something that the companies already do? We expect that they do that, right? And usually they do it, but they just check the euros. And that's a problem. Of course, it's an interesting information, but what happens with the price of the energy? First, it is composed partly in relation to the consumption that we really have. But then we have to add fixed costs, taxes, etc., right? So the euros doesn't really reflect our consumption because there are other things. And moreover, the price of energy could go up and down, okay? So of course it's important to check the euros, but we have to add something else to our spreadsheet. We will also check the kilowatt hours of energy consumption, okay? Because the price could change, the taxes could change, but we are interested to know if we are behaving correctly. We have to understand which is the trend on our energy consumption, okay? Because we could have a new tariff that increases the price of energy, but if we have been able to maintain our energy consumption or to reduce it, then we can compensate one thing to the other one. But we have to really understand which is the trend of our consumption, not just the price, not the whole thing, but the specific data, okay? So we can do it by checking the invoices every month or whatever, whenever we receive them, okay? Is there another way to check the consumption?
Check the flow of the people that the person that used the valve.
You mean checking if people is switching on the lights and so on? Okay.
And the number of the people.
Yeah, but that's related to operational controls. Okay? Besides the invoices, we can also check the consumptions, the water, energy consumption, or gas consumption with the meters. Okay? And this is controlling the consumptions using the meters has an added value compared with the invoice. And is that when we check the meters, for example, we can say every month or twice a month or the first day of the month and then the 15th or whatever, we are going to check the meters. So we write down the consumption, the previous consumption and the new one, and we can check how is the trend. So we have the information ready in order to detect if there's something that is not working, okay? Because when we do it using the invoice, we rely on what is happening. So when we already received the invoice, it's a month later. And if we have, for example, a leakage of water, first we have to pay for it. And then we realize that we had a leakage of water, but you have to pay it, okay? Instead, if we are checking the meter, we can see if the consumption is going up and say, oh, what's happening here? This is not normal, okay? So we can say, let's check it, okay? And maybe we're able to detect the problem before we get the invoice, so paying less or, okay? So we can check our energy consumptions, measure energy consumption, water. What else? Water usually will be in cubic meters or liters. There's also there are also legal requirements that establish the mandatory measurement and monitoring of certain activities. For example, in terms of waste, if we are in an industrial site and we produce waste, we have to inform annually the competent administration on how many tons of waste we have generated along the year, what kind of waste, hazardous, not hazardous, the codes of the waste and everything. So this means that we have to carry out or to have like an accountability, a waste accountability along the year. So we will need to have a measuring and monitoring system to write everything. I remember years ago, I don't know if it has changed in Italy or not, but we have these books that were signed by the administration, and you have to write all the quantities of waste that have been delivered to a waste management company, and the codes, the quantity, the date, and so on. Okay, so we also have legal regulations that already imposes the company to measure and monitor certain activities. What else? What else do we have to measure, or we could measure? Is there any, let's go back to example to the hotel. We said energy, water, okay? Is there any information that it will be interesting to collect in order to see if this energy consumption or this water consumption is adequate to our activity or not? Is there something that we could, is there any information that we have to relate to this in order to see if we are efficient or not efficient? If I said, for example, that we are consuming in our hotel like 700 cubic meters per day, is that a lot? Is that normal? Is it?
Maybe there are some standards we can refer to.
Okay.
In terms of the measure of our activities.
Okay. So one of the ideas is to compare to others, like to have a benchmark if it's available. So if there's any data that tells us, okay, the normal consumption or the standard consumption or the best consumption in your area or for a three-star hotel is about this. So we could know if we are a front runner or if we are at the end because we are a bad performer, okay? So another thing is also to create a ratio in order to see if this data tells us something else, which could be our water indicator in a hotel, for example. Because if we just talk about cubic meters and the total amount of cubic meters, I mean, is this data telling us something? Or we could elaborate the data in order to have more interesting feedback. Like, for example, if we talk about cubic meters of water per overnight staying, that maybe will tell us something, because I will know I could have a month when we have had a higher water consumption, but also because we have 100% occupancy in our hotel. So we got a lot of customers. We were busy the whole month, but maybe we were able to be more efficient because per each customer we have consumed less water, even if the total amount is higher, right? Okay. So when we measure and monitor activities, we have to define indicators in order to establish a panel control and to understand in terms of efficiency if we had better performance or not. Okay? Then, there's something in the management systems that we call non-conformity, and that means that that something is deviating us from our original route, or deviating us from our objectives, or deviating us from the instructions and the procedures that we have established in our operational controls, or something is deviating from the legal requirements, okay? So non-conformity means something that is not performing in the way that it was expected to be, okay? So, as this could happen, and both ISO 40001 and EMAS regulation, but also quality standards foresee that this could happen, we have no conformity, and we also have corrective actions. Corrective actions means, okay, I have understood that I have a problem, I have detected, I have identified the causes, and now I will turn again to my defined destination, okay? So we have to correct the problem and be sure that we are again working towards our environmental policy, our environmental objectives, fulfilling the legal requirements, and carry out the activities as we establish in the operational controls. Yeah? Then, internal audits. Do you know what's an audit?
There is a commission that checks for something.
Okay.
In this case, for environment or for these things.
Activities. Okay. Okay. In your working experience, have you ever had an audit? Any kind of audit? Yes? What kind of audit?
In my case, there was an audit to check. I am in air traffic control, and there was an audit to check meteo system, weather system, and something how we work, and if we have all the publication, something similar.
Okay, interesting. So explain us what do these auditors do?
They came where we work, and they ask us some question about something, but we don't know what they asked to us.
Okay, you knew that they were coming, but you didn't know the questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you know their answers?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. That's what.
I don't know.
Okay. Then we will see with the report.
I hope we answer correct.
Okay. And what else?
I know only this.
Do they check
I
procedures?
don't know what they did in the other parts of
in the other areas. Okay. Okay. Was this an internal or an external audit?
External.
External. Okay. So in this case, we're talking about internal audit, but the activity at the end is similar. I will explain you something about the audits. This may be useful. So, if this is our company, we talk about internal audits when we carry out an activity. An audit is a process, an objective process carried out in order to assess if we are complying with our environmental management requirements, and if we are efficient, and if the environmental management system is well implemented. Okay? And this is called first part or internal audit. Okay? So we carry it out within our organization, with our staff, or contracting external staff, but we are going to do it because we are interested to know if the things here are working. Okay? So whether we do it with external staff or internal staff, we are defining that we want to carry out this audit, and the results of the audits are mainly for us because we want to understand if this works. Okay? So this is internal or first part audit. Okay. Then we have an audit that could be carried out, for example, by our customer. Okay? So we have here the customer, or also a potential customer that says, a company says, okay, I want to understand if I want to work with you. So I will carry out an audit in order to see if I like how you work and if you can be one of my providers. Okay? Or we already work, you are my provider, and say, okay, you're my provider, but in order to be sure that you continue to work as we have established, I'm going to audit you. Okay? So this means that the customer comes here, they carry out the audit, okay? But the output of the audit is mainly because they are interested to know how we work. Okay? So this is called second part audit. And of course, this is an external audit. Okay? This can be done because they do it with their own staff, or also because they ask another company, as an auditor, external auditor, to carry out this activity. Okay? But the results and report and the final report of the audit is for the customer. Okay? The same thing is we can do with our providers or potential providers. So if we do this in this way, okay, provider, this is a second party audit, okay? So we come here, we understand how they work, and the output and the report are for us. Of course, they are interested to know if they perform well or not, because maybe they're reaching a contract with us, okay? And then we have the third-party audit, which is carried out by an environmental auditor or verifier. And they carry out the audit. Of course, they do it because we ask them to do the audit, but the final result of this audit is to establish if we can have the ISO 40001 certification or the EMAS registration. Okay? So the results of the audit, of course, are interesting for us, but also the final result will interest the whole society, because this means if we were able to reach or not the EMAS registration or the certification. Okay? We will talk about this later, okay? But the first case is the internal audit, okay? So the EMAS regulation says you have implemented this whole environmental management system since the environmental review, environmental aspects and impacts, your policy, objectives, the whole thing. Does this work? Are you really performing better? Is people really trained? Does the operational controls that you have established work? And so on. So the system foresees that you have to carry out an internal audit in order to see if the environmental management system is efficiently implemented and if it works. Okay? So what do these auditors do? I mean, our own staff, or if we ask two external people to carry out, they made a program, they got there, they have their own checklist. And what they do is they said, okay, your procedures say that you have to do this and that, and the legal requirements said that you have to do this and that. Let's check it. So they go around the company, they interview people like they did with you. So they ask questions in order to see if the people is prepared and if they know how to do things. They're not assessing the single person. Okay, so the internal audit is not to be understood like, wow, it's an exam, a personal exam. No, they're assessing the whole organization, okay? But of course, they have to interview people. They observe. There are a lot of things that you can understand just by checking how the areas are, if the places are dirty or not, if they're well organized, if there are leakages in the soil or not, if there's a smell or not, if the waste containers are well identified or not, okay? So many things. And they also ask for documents, and they ask for data. So they also want to check our invoices and see if our energy consumption has improved or not, water consumption, the data related to waste, and whatever. They also will ask if we have received external communications, because if we have received any external communication, we have to demonstrate that we have managed it, and we have provided an answer to the person of the or the organization that has asked us for environmental information, and so on. So we'll check everything related to our environmental management. Then finally, they will say, okay, this is a report. Okay, And if there's something that is not working so good, this is something called non-conformity, and they will say, okay, this is the list of things that we have to improve. Okay? So the internal audit is like a self-assessing tool that allowed us to understand whether we have performing correctly and whether we have to improve something. Okay? So the internal audit is a continual improvement tool. Okay? Remember that in the environmental management system, we always have to look for the improvement of the environmental performance. And this is not something that we just reach once and that's it. It's continual improvement. Okay? Then, after the internal audits, we have the management review. Okay? So the management review is the part of the system that closes the whole cycle, the plan, do, check, act cycle, and allowed us to learn from the whole cycle, from the whole process. So, which could be, imagine a meeting with the top manager of the company and the key staff. And what do you think would be the questions that the top management will ask you in relation to the environmental management? Okay, who wants to volunteer? Who wants to be the manager? Oh? You? No? Come on, no one wants to be the manager? You have the whole, great, one. Okay, you will be the top manager. So ask your staff about the results of the whole thing, the environmental management system. As a manager, what would you like to know, concretely? I mean,
how the system works, what every person do, what is its competencies, in what area they can improve their work. What can be their possible mistakes?
Okay.
How I can facilitate their work.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. What else? This is very interesting because then they will ask for things. But that's fair. Any other idea?
If I need more people.
Mm-hmm. More people?
If I need a person that control their operation.
Okay. Okay, supervisor. Usually you will have it because the environmental management system has one requirement, says that the top manager has to define an environmental manager or coordinator, someone that is taking care of the environmental management system. So you will have like this key person. Call it supervisor or coordinator or whatever, okay, but you will have one, okay? Your right hand on the environment. We will start working on this. So he has, the first question you have said, if this works, okay? Of course, because he probably has spent resources, time, money, and so on to build the whole thing. So the first thing is, does it work? Because I have spent resources, so I mean, I want to know if there's a positive feedback from the whole thing or not, okay? So we have to be able to provide information and feedback, okay? And then he asked other things. I said that this is very interesting. How can I facilitate the work? Because it's not so easy that the manager says that. So usually is the staff asking for things to the top management instead of the top management offering. So that's a nice thing, because it says, oh, hey, okay, how can I facilitate? Do we need more people? Or do we need any other resource? Okay. So of course, now at the end of the first cycle, we are assessing the system, and we are defining the inputs for the next cycle. So this means also assessing the need of resources. It could be people, it could be money, it could be waste containers, it could be new technologies, it could be communication, and I don't know, ITs or whatever. Okay.
Information. Information for you.
Information. Okay. So this is very interesting. And if you were the staff working, what's your name? Arturo. With Arturo, what would you answer? If he said, is this working? So for example, you are the head of human resources. What would you explain to Arturo in relation to the environmental management system? And what would you ask if there's something to ask?
Maybe the possibility to buy new machines that added value to the firm and reduce the costs in terms of consumption of raw materials, of pollution, a lot of things, a lot of aspects.
Okay.
He has the money, he must take the decision in this point of view.
Yeah, that's the key aspect. He has the money. So if we need resources, that's why we have the management review. We have to involve the management because he's the one that at the end is signing the check. So if we need something, we have to ask them, but we also have to provide data in order to motivate if we need something, okay? And probably we'll have to explain if you spend this and we invest in this, then this will be the result, okay? So this is something that we could have from the technical area, the production area. So we could change this machine because it's too old. There are new technologies. With new technologies, we could have a better performance and less pollution and so on, okay? And probably the new machine is an energy efficient machine, so it's consuming less than the one that we already have. So we have a saving cost of 10% less if compared with the one that we already have, okay? For example. And there's someone that wants to be the maintenance manager? No? Any ideas from the maintenance area? Human resources? No one? For example,
in procedures that doesn't work before and that can work after. In the new cycle.
Okay. But for example, we can usually human resources define the training program for the staff. So if human resources has worked with the other units, they probably have identified training needs on environmental aspects for each unit. And a training program means also resources. I mean, we're going to spend money and man-days of our people because they're attending training. So this could be something interesting, like to present a new program and to present the results of the previous program, and also ideas in order to motivate and involve our staff, or create, for example, incentive activities for our staff. Okay, and usually this is something, depending on the dimension of the company, that probably the top manager will be involved, because this means also rewarding people. Okay, so in this case, when we talk about the management review, it's not just preparing a report with a lot of data and information for the top manager, but it's also about debating what to do, what were the best things we did in the previous management cycle, what do we have to consolidate, what do we have to improve, what are definitely things that we have to improve because they are unacceptable, okay? And then define input for the following cycle. So this means also asking if our environmental policy is adequate for the next cycle or not, okay? So you remember we were talking about the sailor. We said, okay, here we are, and this is our route, this is our final destination, and we're going there, okay? But maybe after a cycle we'll say, is this still our route? Do we want to go in this direction or not? Is there something that we have to change or not? Maybe it will be the same, okay? Because usually companies do not change their environmental policy year by year. But it is good to ask, is it okay, our policy? Is it still alive, this environmental policy, or not? Or do we have to do something, okay? And then, besides the policy, what else do we have to ask? We have to change what? Something more concrete. We said the environmental policy is, I mean, a general commitment, but then if we have to do something more concrete. What do we have?
An agenda that make that priority of the stuff that are about the environmental, the environment.
How do we call this agenda, because we said, okay, the environmental policy, nice, it's commitment, but it's like wishes and...
The to-do list.
The to-do list. Okay, so the objectives, right? So probably here we will change things, because we said, okay, our general policy is still alive, but we have achieved our objectives or not, but then we have to define which will be the objectives for the next cycle, okay? So one thing that the manager will ask is, have we achieved our objectives? Yes, no. If no, why? Okay. And then which will be the next objectives, okay? Do you think that it is a problem if we have not reached one of our environmental objectives? So imagine you get to the meeting room and there's Arturo there, and you know that he will ask about these environmental objectives, and he will say, okay, well, you, Fabrizio, tell me about the reduction of the 10% reduction of energy consumption, or whatever. And you said, no, we just reached, pardon? No, I can hear, sorry. No, we just reached 5% of our objective, okay? So is that a bad thing? So you will fire him.
Just to change the supervisor.
Okay. Well, I mean, of course, it's nice to achieve the objectives, okay? But it could happen that we don't achieve an objective, okay? Because of different things. I mean, we can have different causes. So the most important thing is not just of course we have to be objective oriented in the work, but the most important thing is to identify if there's an obstacle in order to achieve this objective. That's why it's very important along the year to follow and monitor this objective and see if there's something happening that will constrain, that will deny the possibility to achieve the objective, okay? So, if we get to the meeting with Arturo and we said we have reached the 5%, not the 10 as we have foreseen, because at the beginning when we have assessed that we were changing a machine and doing this and the other one, we thought that this technology was going to provide us 8%, and then beside this, because we were installing another thing, but the public administration didn't allow us to build the space in order to put the machine. So till now we have not been able to buy it, and we will have to wait until we get the final permit from the public administration, okay? So in this case, we are motivating what happened, okay? So we are showing that the thing is under control, that we have not reached the objective as defined at the beginning, but that we have followed it, we know what's happening, we know how to solve it. Or if it is impossible because we know that we'll never get this permit or whatever, then we will say we have to change this objective for the next year, because with these actions we're not going to be able to reach it, okay? And there's no problem. The problem is when we set an objective, we forgot about it, and then we get to the management review meeting with Arturo and we said, oh my God, no, we just reached 5%. And I said, how come? Oh, I don't know, because I don't know, or we have not implemented this or whatever. So the problem of the objective is not just reaching it, but also monitoring it. Okay, so we have to be able to demonstrate that we have not forgotten about the objective, so that we have worked on it along the year, because we are not going to implement an objective the last day before the meeting with Arturo. Okay, so that's important. Okay, sorry if you don't stop me, I continue talking, so just say, oh, okay. Well, thank you. We stop for today. And see you tomorrow. I don't know if you have to say something tomorrow. See you at the university tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Have a nice rest. Thanks.